informed answer there, other than to say that was I not to produce this evidence here now, this commission would be completely unaware of the fact that the conduct he's now complaining of was exactly the conduct that he was involved in some years back. And if you're going to be a whistleblower, as he claims to be, you should be a whistleblower with clean hands.
Hold that thought about clean hands. We're coming back to it. First, watch how this commission actually works, because what you heard at the top is where it ends up, not where it starts. What you're about to see is a chairperson who is openly irritated. A witness submitted a brand new statement over the weekend. An entire day of consultation was burned on Friday, and the panel expected him to finally come clean. Instead, the chair calls the so-called fresh evidence a damp squib, a lead balloon, a wasted day. Now think about why that matters to you. Every day this commission sits, it's public money, the lawyers, the venue, the security, while you sit in a queue for a grant or wait for a clinic with no doctor. So when a witness drip feeds the truth and burns a day, that's not a technicality. That's your money spent watching a man calculate how much honesty he can afford. And here's what the headlines won't say plainly. Reluctant witnesses aren't an accident. They are the system protecting itself in slow motion, one forced inch at a time. Watch this one closely because it gets dark fast. If you want the real version of this story and not the sanitized one, subscribe and stay with me. Following it properly is the whole point. The next clip is where he tells us what he was really doing. Did he come to confess or to manage what we'd find? Tell me below.
Is being made and a little bit with regard to context and the background. Largely, the narrative by Mr. Nku remains the same, and I must say that comes as a surprise to me because we wasted a whole day on Friday. The idea, at least insofar as I understood it, maybe it's the same with my co-commissioners, the idea being that Mr. Nku was to come clean, as it were. Speaking for myself, I don't quite see that, but we'll see as matters unfold. It's just a little bit about the background, how this started insofar as Egerton and Egerton only is concerned, you know, what the background is in that regard, and a little bit about how the interception was supposed to happen, but the rest of the narrative is the same. For a whole wasted day, I cannot but say it's absolutely a damp squib, or a lead balloon, as some would say.
What we just saw was a man being dragged toward honesty. Here's what the honesty actually revealed, and it's uglier than a wasted day. In this exchange, the witness confirms the whole architecture of the scheme. The man he calls EB boss is a drug trafficker, the intended recipient of the shipment, also a trafficker, a rival, and the witness's job was to make sure that rivals' drugs got intercepted and busted, not for justice, to sabotage a competitor and protect his boss's market share. Sit with that. This isn't a story about a drug bust. It's a story about a drug bust being used as a weapon between two cartels with the police as the instrument. The win wasn't getting drugs off the street. The win was a recorded bust that discredited the rival in front of his own suppliers. So the next time a politician brags about a major seizure, ask the question this testimony forces. Was that a victory for the public or a favor for somebody's competitor? In this world, a bust can be a service rendered. This is the rot underneath the headlines. The drugs that fuel the gangs running your area were a business dispute being refereed by people with badges. Coming up, a witness tries to deny who he is, and the panel takes him apart piece by piece. Do you buy that this man came to set the record straight? Drop your verdict below.
Okay, so let's just take it step by step. EB Boss is a drug trafficker, correct?
And that's what I've came to understand.
Okay. And when you say the intended recipient is also a drug trafficker.
That would be the case.
And the intended recipient is a competitor of EB Boss.
Correct.
Okay. And EB Boss would have to know that the consignment is intended for his competitor.
They would have to know.
Okay.
And
the competitor also knows that the drugs is on its way.
Correct.
And you are then there to make sure, or you are tasked or brought into this operation by who does the introduction, by Mr. Mapatswe, and tasked by EB Boss to make sure that his rival doesn't get the intended shipment, the drugs.
Correct.
That last clip explained the scheme. Now watch the witness try to disappear from his own evidence. The commission has chats where a person saved as Philip Plain is talking to the trafficker. The witness insists that's not him. So the panel does something simple and devastating. They take the phone number attached to Philip Plain, run it through Truecaller, and it comes back as his number, his. Then they show him photos from the chats where he's wearing a designer brand called, of all things, Philip Plain, the letters PP on his chest. And still he won't concede. He argues about Truecaller. He argues about when names were added. He argues about everything except the obvious, until the chairperson, clearly exhausted, says he doesn't understand why it had to take forever and ever. Here's why this matters beyond one squirming witness. This is what accountability actually looks like in this country. A panel spending 20 minutes dragging a man to admit a phone number is his. 20 minutes, one number. Now multiply that by every general, every contract, every looted account, and you understand why nothing moves. The truth is buried under deliberate confusion, and the people burying it know exactly what they're doing. The mainstream report will say the witness was questioned about chats. I'm telling you, it was a man fighting reality in real time. So when he finally cracks, and he does, what does that tell you about everything else he swore was true? Let me know below.
Because Philip Plain, for purposes of this debate, is how the communicator with Alpha was saved. That's where it is. That has nothing to do with whether Philip Plain was also on Truecaller. Do you get me?
I do understand.
So I don't understand what you are debating with me then. Now, can you respond to what I said to you earlier, which I've repeated 1,000 times and I'm not going to repeat?
Apologies, Chair. So, is Chair saying what do I say in relation to my number being attached to Philip Plain? Please,
I said to you, the person that Alpha was chatting with is saved by Alpha as Philip Plain. You get me? That's fine.
I do understand, Chair.
The person who made this presentation that you have in front of you, at page 15 of the document in front of you, that person says they then wanted to get to the bottom of who Philip Plain is. They then took the number which you accept is your number on your engagement with Commissioner Baloyi. They took that number, plonged it onto Truecaller. On Truecaller, that number appeared as Mr. Nku's number. That is what I want to understand, whether or not you accept.
I concede to
You
that,
accept.
Okay, yes, Chair.
I just don't understand why it had to take forever and ever. Thank you.
That last clip was a man cornered. This one is the reason it all matters, because here the testimony stops being about him and starts being about a general. Listen to what he says about the officer he calls Chief Mashaba. When law enforcement moved on goods he flagged, the seizures were never complete. Only a portion got booked into official custody. The rest, gone. And then the line that should stop you cold. He says Mashaba, when he needed money, would phone him to ask whether there was any illegal activity he could benefit from, either a cut of what was recovered or by squeezing the people involved. That is a description of a senior policeman using crime intelligence as a personal ATM. Goods seized in your name, booked at a fraction of their value, the difference walking out the door. And this is the part the comfortable coverage skips. He doesn't describe this as one bad night. He describes a routine, a working arrangement, the kind of thing that doesn't survive without people above looking away. So ask yourself, every seizure you ever cheered on the news, how much actually reached the evidence room, and how much quietly became somebody's salary top-up? When you hire mice to guard the cheese was never safe. Next, the bust itself and where that truck really went. Was it ever going to the police station, watch and decide?
Access to information concerning suspected unlawful activities. In those instances, I would provide him with intelligence or information that I regarded as credible, and he would then arrange for the involvement of law enforcement officials to effect arrests, seizures, or the operational steps. By way of example, I had previously provided him with information relating to matters involving fake diesel and illicit cigarettes. 14. It is important for me to record that based on my experience in those previous matters, the intervention by law enforcement did not always result in what I understood to be a complete or proper seizure of all goods discovered. In certain instances, only a portion of the goods appeared to be formally recorded or booked into official custody. I understood that Chief Mashaba on occasions when he required money would he would contact me to inquire whether I had access to information concerning illegal activities from which he might benefit either through a portion of what was recovered or through exerting pressure on the persons involved.
I told you to watch where the truck went. Here it is. The plan supposedly was a clean bust, take the consignment to Alberton police station. Instead, the general and his warrant officer get into their cars and lead the witness south toward Johannesburg, the opposite direction. The witness phones to ask why. The answer, don't worry, just follow. They arrive at a depot, the container opens, and black duffel bags come tumbling out. The exact bags the witness says he was shown in advance, each one allegedly packed with hundreds of blocks of drugs. Now connect the two things you've just learned: a general who skims seizures, and a consignment quietly driven away from the police station instead of toward it. This is what infiltration looks like on the ground, not a press conference, not a flowchart, a truck full of drugs, a diversion, and a man with a badge deciding where it really goes. And here's the consequence that never makes the headline. Those drugs don't evaporate. They go back into the same communities that bury their children every weekend, the same streets where mothers are scared to send a child to the shop. That's the real cost of a compromised bust. It's not abstract, it's your neighborhood. The mainstream version calls this a disputed police operation. I call it the system working exactly as designed for the people inside it. Does this look like law enforcement to you or like a delivery? Comments below.
The destination included that of the truck was Alberton Police Station as agreed. However, I was surprised when Chief Mashaba and the truck took a route towards the south of Johannesburg. I then called Chief Mashaba to inquire about the direction and the destination, as we were now going the opposite of Alberton. However, he responded by saying I should not worry and just follow. 25. Upon arrival at Erotin Scania, I parked next to Chief Mashaba's car, and Mashaba told me to stay in the vehicle. I waited inside my vehicle and as instructed. I observed Chief Mashaba and Warrant Officer Mkhwanazi leave their cars to speak to the people responsible at Scania truck. including a lady later known to me. Oh, apologies. Let me just. Later known.
It should say known.
Yes, known.
Yes.
Later known to me as Jolene. I later on witnessed Mashaba. I think it should be Mashaba, not Mashana. Mashaba and Warrant Officer Mkhwanazi Jolene walk from the offices and to the truck which I had identified. A few minutes later, they seem to have agreed to open the container. As soon as they opened the container, I witnessed black duffel bags falling off the container. These bags matched the pictures of the black duffel bags that were sent to me previously.
New witness, completely different energy. Meet Paul O'Sullivan, and before you decide what to think of him, hear his record. This is a man who tells the commission he was shot 3 times on duty, who was dismissed from his police role by then Commissioner Jackie Selebi, then turned around and built the investigation that put Selebi in prison for 15 years for corruption. Decades of self-funded work chasing dirty cops and cartels. Why does this matter? Because the man about to testify is not a nobody with a grudge. He has already taken down a national police commissioner. So when he starts naming generals, you can't wave it away. But here's where I want you thinking critically. A track record is not a blank check. O'Sullivan is a private operator with his own methods and his own agenda. The same intensity that takes down a Selebi can also overreach. Hold both ideas at once. This man knows where the bodies are buried, and you should still weigh every single claim he makes. Because what he says next reframes the whole story we've been told about this commission, including about the man whose press conference started it all. The mainstream made O'Sullivan a footnote. I think he's the most dangerous witness in the room. Watch why.
Is concerned. And my career in the police came to a rapid end when I was dismissed by then Commissioner of Police Jackie Selebi, and the rest of it after that is history. I decided to open an investigation into Commissioner Selebi, and as is known, he was found guilty of corruption and sent to jail for 15 years. And on after that, commissioners, I got involved in further crime-fighting activities, not as a police official, but as a volunteer. I formed a charity called Forensics for Justice, which I financed myself. And Forensics for Justice focused on dealing with corruption within the criminal justice system. And we're not talking here about...
Watch O'Sullivan put a jigsaw together in real time, because this is how corruption actually gets exposed. He's investigating the organized crime figure he calls Kreacher. Out of nowhere, a crime intelligence general, Mabasa, calls him in, says he wants to take Kreacher down, and asks for O'Sullivan's file. O'Sullivan hands it over. An hour later, a source tells him the general is on his way to Kreacher himself, carrying that exact file. So O'Sullivan investigates the general. And what does he find? The general's wife is a director in a company alongside Kreacher's wife. 2 wives, 1 company. And the timing is the kicker. She resigns as a director 2 weeks after O'Sullivan exposes the link in the media. Now here's the part that should make every taxpayer furious. This general isn't arrested, he isn't prosecuted, he's suspended and then handed a 3.5 million rand golden handshake, money signed off, O'Sullivan says, by another crime intelligence boss, Madluli. Do the arithmetic. A general allegedly in business with an organized crime figure walks away 3.5 million richer. That's not justice failing by accident. That's the price of accountability being quoted and paid with public money. O'Sullivan calls it the missing head on the pike. Step out of line in the police and nothing happens. You get moved or you get paid. Does that sound like a force that can protect you? Tell me below.
Into General Mabasa. And what do I find? I find that his wife is a director of a company with Radovan Kreacher's wife. I was shocked. So, of course, I exposed all this. And what I find to be ironical, and it's covered on page at the bottom of page 7 and page 8 is that the wife of General Mabasa became a director of that company on the 10th of October 2009. And she resigned as a director of that company on the 30th of June 2010. And it's no coincidence that the date of her resignation is 2 weeks after I had exposed the fact that General Mabasa's wife was in business with Radovan Krejcir's wife. And it was all over the media, and then she promptly resigned. Needless to say, my complaint, which is a very serious complaint, which I sent to General Zermatt and General Sabir at the time was the head of DPCI in Gauteng, and I sent them a very serious complaint, and within a week or two, General Mabasa was suspended, and then he was later given a golden handshake. But what was interesting to me is that the registered address of that company was 64 First Avenue in Edenvale.
Quick one, but it lands hard. O'Sullivan describes the moment he nearly fell off his chair. Years ago, he chased a Colonel, Steyn, who he says took a 400,000 rand loan from a company controlled by the gangster Krejcir, and who he believes leaked his phone records to that same gangster while people were trying to have him killed. He thought the man had been dismissed back in 2013. Then he switches on this very commission, and there's Colonel Steyn sitting as a witness, talking about drug trafficking like an expert. A man O'Sullivan says was on a drug trafficker's payroll, now presented as a credible voice. This is the quiet scandal nobody headlines. The system doesn't expel these people, it recycles them. Suspended on one side, resurfaced on the other, sometimes as the very witnesses meant to help us understand the rot. So when you watch a commission, ask the uncomfortable question: who is actually testifying, and what's their history? Sound off below.
The excuse which Steyn had given to the journalists, but the reality is he admitted that there was a loan. Now, only when I saw Colonel Steyn giving evidence at this commission, I nearly fell off my chair because I thought he'd been suspended and dismissed back in 2013. And now I suddenly saw him sitting at this commission. I thought, wow. And now he's talking about drug trafficking. He was working, he was on the payroll of a drug trafficker, in my opinion, back in 2011 because he received this money from Radovan Krejcir. So now, suddenly, a complete turnaround. So I thought it was necessary to include mention of this, commissioners. Now, that's really all I have to say about that.
Now we get to the heart of it. Remember the clean hands line from the very start? This is the evidence behind it. O'Sullivan walks the commission back to 2012, when Mkhwanazi, yes, that Mkhwanazi, the man whose July press conference launched this whole inquiry, was acting national commissioner. And according to O'Sullivan's reading of Mkhwanazi's own affidavit, the Minister of Police instructed him to lift the suspension of crime intelligence boss Mdluli. Mkhwanazi says he told the minister the instruction was illegal, and then he did it anyway. He acquiesced. Feel the weight of that. The man who stood in front of the country and condemned political interference in the police is accused, on his own sworn words, of bowing to political interference himself to protect a crime intelligence chief, then staying silent about it for 8 years. Now I want to be fair, because this matters. The commissioners pushed back hard. They asked whether a man can't have a change of heart, whether past sin cancels present truth. Those are real questions, and O'Sullivan's answer was blunt. A whistleblower should come with clean hands. Here's my take, and tell me if I'm wrong. Both things can be true, that Mkhwanazi exposed real corruption last year, and that his own history is not spotless. The mainstream turned him into a saint. The evidence suggests a more complicated man. Saint or strategist? Comments.
And then I go on to 1.7.2.9. At the meeting with Minister Mtetwa, and this is based on his affidavit, at the meeting with Minister Mtetwa and the Inspector General of Intelligence, the Minister instructed General Mkhwanazi to uplift the suspension of General Mdluli. General Mkhwanazi later claims to have informed Minister Mthethwa at the meeting that his instruction was illegal. Nevertheless, he acquiesced. General Mkhwanazi has always been deliberately vague about the dates and times of these meetings. Given the importance of same, there can be no legitimate reason for this vagueness. And then we continue on page 21. 17210. Following the meeting with the Minister of Police and the unlawful reinstatement of the Inspector General's opinion, bearing in mind, according to his version of events, the Inspector General of Intelligence was like a straw in the wind, flip-flopping, 1 minute saying this and the next minute saying that, and then going back to the original. It says here, General Mkhwanazi uplifted the suspension of General Ndluli on the...
Follow the money, because this is the engine room of the whole scandal. O'Sullivan points to one thing, the Crime Intelligence Secret Service account. A fund so secret that by law, nobody gets to see how it's spent. No clean audit ever. And watch the number. In 2012, that budget was 98 million rand a year. By 2024, 600 million. A 512% increase, 5 times the rate of inflation. And what did the country get for that explosion in secret spending? Less crime? No. O'Sullivan's answer is brutal. A parade of successive crime intelligence heads arrested for stealing from that very account. The money went up 5-fold. The arrests kept coming. The crime did not go down. Now understand what this means in your life. That's 600 million rand a year, untouchable and unaudited, while your local police station has no vehicle and no fuel, while dockets vanish, while you're told there's no budget for the basics. There's a budget, it's just secret, and it's bleeding. This is the context O'Sullivan uses for his most explosive question. Was last year's famous press conference a smokescreen, not to expose crime intelligence, but to protect the people looting it? I'm not asking you to swallow that whole. I'm asking you to notice that nobody in the mainstream even allowed the question. Should that fund still be secret at all? Tell me below.
I've made it clear that for years and years and years, the epicenter of crime in the police service is the Crime Intelligence Division. It's the epicenter. Everything that goes wrong in the police, it's the Crime Intelligence Division. And why? Because we have a so-called secret services account, which is so secret, nobody can know how the money's spent, which is great. Because if you want some money to do other things with, you can do it. And nobody can ask you any questions. No Auditor General has ever given a clean report on the Crime Intelligence Secret Service account. And if one looks at the growth of that fund, by the way, you can pick up from the police budgets the fund itself, but you can't see how it's spent. And in 2012, when General Mkhwanazi was the acting Commissioner of Police, the budget for the Secret Service account was 98 million rand per annum. In 2024, it stood at 600 million rand per annum, which is an increase of 512%, which is 5 times the rate of inflation over that same period. But what we don't have is we don't have a concomitant decrease in crime. What we do have, if you look at the last 14 years, is we have successive heads of crime intelligence being arrested and sent to jail for stealing from the Secret Service account.
Last clip, and it's the one that ties the knot. Watch a commissioner do exactly what we should all do. Refuse to let a clever theory bury the facts. O'Sullivan has just floated his boldest claim, that the July press conference was a smokescreen to protect what he calls the Crime Intelligence 7, and the commissioner stops him with the only question that matters. Even if it was a smokescreen, does that make the allegations untrue? Should they not still be investigated? And O'Sullivan, to his credit, doesn't dodge. Absolutely not, he says. The allegations should be investigated. A lot of good can come out of them. That's the line I want you to leave with. You can hold 2 things at once. You can believe that real corruption was exposed, generals named, dockets opened, contracts laid bare, and still ask why. still ask who benefits, and still refuse to canonize anyone. The moment you let them turn one man into a hero or a villain, you stop watching the system. And the system is the story. Always was. The mainstream gave you a clean fairy tale, a brave general, a corrupt minister, the end. What this commission actually shows is a hall of mirrors, where today's whistleblower may have been yesterday's cover-up, and the same secret fund keeps everyone fed. If this is the version you want, the one nobody's putting on prime time, subscribe, share it with someone who still believes the headline, and follow as the commission continues. The arrests aren't done, neither are we, so tell me, hero, strategist, or both? Drop it below, and let's argue about it properly.
In crime intelligence from carrying on with their crimes.
Mr. O'Sullivan, can I ask you one question? You say the press conference of 6 July 2025 was a smokescreen.
Was it? It's a question.
Yeah. So let's assume that it was.
Pardon me?
I'm saying let's assume for the purposes of my engagement with you that it was a smokescreen.
Yeah.
Does it mean that the allegations made that day are not true and should not be investigated? Because that's what this commission has been established to do.
Absolutely.
It is to investigate, amongst others, the allegations that were made by General Mkhwanazi on the day. Now, say his motive, for argument's sake, say his motive was to protect the Crime Intelligence 7.
Yeah.
And that was his reason for this press conference. Does that mean the allegations he made are not true and should not be investigated?
Absolutely not. In fact, if you look at me having gone on record, on the 6th of July in the evening, I did a media call. The media contacted me about this whole media conference of his. And the first thing I said was there needs to be a judicial commission of inquiry. I made the point, and I've repeatedly made the point,